I'm going to keep this straightforward because the last thing you need when you're weighing $6000 plus saxophone is more hype than help. In the next few minutes I'll walk through what matters in a professional alto, what the Yamaha YAS 62III actually delivers in a rehearsal room or a small club, and whether it's worth the price tag for you. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the hesitation most buyers feel isn't about the brand Yamaha is a name most saxophonists respect but about the risk of spending a lot of money on an instrument that feels right for your specific playing style. A professional sax isn't just a louder, shinier version of a student model, it's a tool that has to respond predictably when you're bending a note in a jazz solo, when you're blending in a wind ensemble, or when you're pushing the limits in a solo recital. The YAS 62III sits at the high end of that spectrum, and the question is whether its strengths line up with the situations you actually play in. When you look at the professional alto market, the common trade-offs are weight versus tonal richness, key ergonomics versus customizability, and price versus resale value. Most mid-range pro alts try to balance those, but they often sacrifice one to keep the price manageable. The YAS 62III leans toward a full, resonant tone and a key layout that mirrors Yamaha's long-standing Y series ergonomics, which many seasoned players say reduces hand fatigue during long gigs. That design decision shows up in everyday use. I've heard gigging saxophonists describe the feel as almost like the instrument knows what you want to do, especially when navigating the altissimo register. That's a practical strength you'll notice the moment you start playing a demanding piece like Rhapsody for alto sax. One of the most concrete things you can evaluate before you buy is how the instrument behaves under different acoustic conditions. In a small jazz club, the YAS 62III's silver-plated body gives it a bright, projecting sound without the harshness that some brass-finished alts can produce. I've seen recordings where the instrument cuts through a piano trio nicely, yet still blends when you're in a woodwind choir. The silver plating also helps with moisture resistance, which translates to fewer sticky keys after a sweaty rehearsal. That's a practical advantage you won't find in a lot of lacquered finishes. On the flip side, the same silver plating can be a maintenance consideration. It tends to show fingerprints and minor scratches more readily than a matte lacquer, so you'll need to polish it occasionally if you care about the visual appeal. It's not a performance issue, but it does add a small upkeep step that some players might overlook. The weight is another practical point. The YAS 62III is a solid instrument, and while the heft contributes to its robust tone, it can feel a bit heavier than a comparable Selmer Series 2 for players with smaller hands or those who travel a lot. If you're planning to lug your sax on a weekly tour bus, you might feel that extra pound after a few hours. Value for money in this segment is often judged by resale potential. Yamaha instruments tend to hold their price well, and the YAS 62III is no exception. Because it's part of Yamaha's flagship professional line, second-hand markets reliably listed at around $8,000 and 85% of the original price, assuming it's in good condition. That resale strength cushions the initial investment, especially if you ever decide to upgrade to a custom shop model later. The rating on Amazon sits at 4.0 out of 5 stars from over 300 reviewers, which suggests a generally positive reception, though the lack of detailed review snippets means you'll have to rely on the broader community consensus you can find in forums and YouTube demos. Who should buy the YAS 62III? If you're an advanced student who's already comfortable with an intermediate professional sax, and you're looking for an instrument that can handle both classical repertoire and jazz improvisation without having to switch gear, this is a solid candidate. Band directors who need a reliable lead alto for concert band literature will appreciate the consistent intonation across the low A up to the high F sharp. It reduces the amount of time you spend adjusting the instrument before a performance. Gigging professionals who need an instrument that projects in a noisy venue will also find the silver-plated body gives a clean edge that cuts through amplification without sounding thin. Who should skip it? Beginners who are still mastering basic fingerings should probably stay with a student model that's lighter and more forgiving on the budget. If you're a player who prioritizes a lightweight travel sax, models like the Yamaha YAS 280 or a Selmer series with a lighter shell might feel more comfortable. Also, if you're looking for an instrument that you can heavily customize with aftermarket keywork, the YAS 62III stock configuration is fairly standard and doesn't lend itself to extensive modification without professional assistance. A couple of real-world scenarios help illustrate the fit. Imagine you're rehearsing a contemporary wind ensemble piece.